So recently I was in a situation where I had to write raw SQL into a shared staging database. Now this database wasn't being used in production or for live users, but it did affect, if I made bad changes, it would have affected the workflow of my colleagues, which had me a bit nervous. So I ended up creating this project. It's a playground that involves using PostgreSQL and an application called DBMate, which allows you to write migrations. And the goal of this is it allows me to basically play around with the database, give me a bit more confident with writing SQL queries, with writing migrations before I did the real stuff on this shared staging database. So I created this project, it's on GitHub, and I kind of wanted to share it for other people to use if you want to get better at writing SQL or to have a play around yourself, or if you're in that particular kind of predicament as well where you have to make alterations to a shared staging database and you're just a bit too scared to do it straight away. So let's jump into some of the code and some examples and check it out and see if it's useful for you. Great, so let's have a look at some of the code. So essentially it really is just Docker Compose. So let me just show you here. And what Docker Compose does, it allows us to run two containers. So it'll spin up DBMate, which allows us to run the migrations as well as the database itself inside its own little container, and it's attached to a volume. You'll see here that there's a database URL with the DBMate. This allows us to connect to that Postgres database when you want to run the migrations, and it uses that through the internal network that Docker Compose creates. So let's have a look at some commands. So if we go into the make file, the make file contains some commands which you can run on your own, but sometimes I forget or I can't be bothered writing out all the characters. I prefer just to do make run, and it'll get rid of any dangling Docker containers. As well as that, it will run the Docker Compose, build it, and run it in detached mode as well. We also have other commands like, for example, attach. Attach allows us to connect to the database container, but let's say we want to connect to it and also connect to the Postgres service, PSQL. So we've got this make connect here, which connects to the container, as well as it will also connect to PSQL, so you can run the queries. We also have make up, down, and new. What these do is make up will obviously run the migration or go forward. Make down will go backwards to the migration if you want to undo a migration. And we also got make new to create new migrations. So let's play around with that. So let's get out of that there. I'm going to show you DB sample. So DB sample has a sample migration. All it does, it will basically create an author, it'll create some books, and it'll create some just dummy data, like for example, an author, Alice and Bob. So sorry, I should say these are going to create the tables, and this is going to create the rows in the tables. Like for example, Alice and Bob, it's going to create them as authors. And in this example here, we're also going to create some books as rows as well. And let me get rid of that because it's going to give me an error otherwise. So should be able to save that and format it, good. And you can see here, just below that, I know Teresa is complaining, but just down here, we have an example of dropping the table. So if we want to migrate down, we'll just delete those tables. So let's get out of this here, and I'll save that. And what we can actually do is we can connect to the database. So we're going to connect to the database using PSQL, and we're just going to run, I think it's /DT, and what this will do is it'll just show us the potential migrations here. So I was playing around with this before. You could see that I did some migrations before, but we're not seeing our tables, author, and books. So we can even run a query. So we go select books, I'll select from books, and we're going to see it's not going to come up with anything. So what we're going to do is we'll get out of this here, and we're going to just play around with the files. So I think just making sure that, get rid of this. And if I just rename this to DB, you see that it creates a little, it just moves those files over to DB. So I should be able to run the migration. So if I go make up, it's going to run the migration. And let's connect to our database to see if it actually created those tables. So if I go make connect, and if I recall, I think it's select, and I think what we'll do is we'll do select all on from books, and we're going to join authors onto it on that foreign key relationship, which is authors.id equals books author ID, and we'll just run that command. And you can see down here that we have our books, which we created this time, the books here with their associated authors, Alice and Bob. Great, so what happens if we want to make that change in the database? I mean, that's the whole point of this project, right? So I can write and make changes to a database. So let's just go ahead and do that. So how do we do that? Let's get out of this. And let's clear all this, and let's create a new migration. So if we go into the make file, I've actually just did some editing. of this file in between kind of takes for this video. So we've got the ability to make new migrations. So let's run that. So you'll see it here, make new migrations, and we're going to add a column to the database at the author table, and we'll call it date of birth. So let's create that migration. We've got a new migration file that's created, so let's enter into that. And here it is here. So we're going to do an alter to the table, and I can't remember exactly how to do it, so please bear with me. So we're going to alter to the table, and I think it's add column DOB date, and we default it to null. I think we can do that. I'm not sure though. So let me just check the documentation really quickly. Great, so just looking through the documentation now, we don't need this, I think. I don't know why this is erroring either. Cool, and we'll write a little query to insert into the author table with the date of birth. So let's type that in. Great, so we've written that migration, and let's see what the changes we made. I'm actually surprised that ran. So let's connect into our database, and let's do our lookup on the authors table from authors, and there we go. So we've got our three columns, ID, the new chars we added on, plus the date of birth. And you can see that Alice and Bob, it's null, they're nullable fields, so they're empty. Great, so I hope this kind of inspired you on your journey of programming. The GitHub repository is all down in the comments or the description down below, so check it out and let me know if there's something else you want me to make, or some video, or whatever you're struggling on, because what I'm struggling on is just the confidence in writing SQL queries and getting better at programming. So that's kind of what I want to do with this channel as well. Have random content on here, but I kind of want to inspire others to make their own projects, get better at this, because I'm on the journey as well with trying to become a better programmer. And I think I do that through making these projects and kind of sharing it out with people and inspiring others. So if there's anything you want me to make, or you got any questions, please let me know down below in the comments, or just get in touch with me. I'm happy to make something, or if you got a question, just let me know. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed. Hope you found it useful as well. So stay focused and talk soon.